Hey everyone, Donnie with Anderson Ford Motorsport here, and today we have a very special product spotlight for you. Digital dashes are a nice way to modernize your Fox Body Mustang, and usually the big intimidation factor is modifying your wiring. A lot of times it involves splicing, cutting of wires, and it can be very intimidating for someone, especially for the do-it-yourselfer. Now today's product is definitely going to highlight that and make your install of a digital dash much easier. Which brings me to my guest here. He's actually going to explain, introduce himself, and also go over the products here that he's offering and what we're carrying at Anderson Ford Motorsport.
Thank you, Donnie. I'm Darren with Newradsolutions, and today I'd like to introduce you to my digital easy harness. So I've designed this product for the DIY community. So for those of you that might have wiring anxiety or intimidated by wiring, my kit is going to simplify this install, possibly even save you money over having a dealer install this product for you. One thing I would like to note with my kit, I offer it in two versions. I have a regular version and a short version. This is probably one of the most common questions I get, why I have the short version. Today we're going to be installing a Dakota Digital RTX dash. It has a remote control box, which we will take and wire to this control box. So that is why we have the regular length kit. However, my product also supports other dash manufacturers such as Autometer, the Envision product. It also supports the Holly Pro Dash, Intellitronics, New Vintage, and others. And to clarify what I mean by that, this is an Autometer dash, and in this case, they actually provide a head unit and display panel. So the Autometer provides the head unit, but they already provide the wiring for you. So instead of having to supply all the extra wire, what I do is I solve the problem for you. So what my kit does is it attaches directly to your OEM connectors. No need to splicing. It saves you time and aggravation. Follow the simple to use wiring diagram. Saves you a couple hours of time, and also avoids, quite simply, having to modify a harness that actually is not even available on the market today.
Correct, and that makes it completely reversible. If you got like a rare car, you want to put a dash in there, and say you go to sell the car at some point, and you don't want to, they don't want the digital dash, they want the original equipment, you can simply reverse it and not have to worry about exposed wire or anything along those lines.
Correct, and you don't have to worry, because mine snaps on directly, you don't have to worry about a improper connection or a loose connection. Frankly, there is no connection other than directly to the OEM connector.
Fantastic. Like Darren mentioned, we're going to be installing the Dakota Digital RTX. I chose this one personally for my 87 Mustang behind us here because I wanted all the upgraded features that it offers, plus keep that nice retro look of a Fox Body Mustang. We do offer this as a bundled price unit together, but we also offer many other products for digital dashes on the website.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started.
Let's do it.
But another little thing that is very important and is not to be missed is on the back side of your gauge cluster is a 510 ohm resistor as it came from Ford. In a digital install, this resistor, if you remove it and you do not replace it, if you get lucky, your car will start and then die, and in many cases your vehicle won't start. Now I'm going to go over one of the nice things about my kit. We're going to do almost all the wiring outside the car. But in the case of Dakota Digital and others, this resistor, what they refer to as a load harness, it's essentially replacing this resistor, but it's very important. You cannot skip this step or you will have an issue. The kit can support both the 87 to 89 and the 90 to 93. So again, check the wiring diagram on the website. On an 87 to 89, we're going to cut in this load resistor to pins 5 and 6 on what is the left connector. For you guys with a 90 to 93, you are going to be using pins 2 and 14 on the right connector. It's the same process on either side. Now we're going to go ahead and lay this out. And again, we want pins 5 and 6. And if we were not doing this with my kit, you would be doing this inside your car and you would be cutting into your stock harness. So what makes this very nice is the ends of my wires are labeled. However, I also have nice, easy to read call outs in these molded pieces, so it's very easy to read them. Just double check so you don't make a mistake. And we're not using any fancy tools here. These are all hand tools that you would have right at home. And the other tip is you don't want to go all the way to the ends of these wires. You definitely want to cut these. Don't just try and cut this in at the tail end of the wire. It may or may not create an issue, but this little bit of extra resistance, these resistors on the back of the cluster, they do set up the voltage across your alternator, so you don't want to run into any charging issue. So what I do is I take pins 5 and 6, I just eyeball it about 4 or 5 inches because we're going to be putting braided loam on this, and then we're actually going to have heat shrink. So you want to be well within that braided loam. So I come about 5 inches back, and then I snip the first wire. And because we don't want 2 butt connectors side by side, about the width of 1 butt connector, I do the second one. So this is pins 5 and 6. Now, don't discard this wire. This is actually, can be used if you ever wanted to extend them. This is actually automotive grade wire. This is not your AutoZone stuff. So I do recommend keeping this. It's nice TXL wire and can be used possibly for any of the other expansion modules, especially in a Dakota system. So we're going to go ahead and discard that. We're going to go ahead and strip. So this is 22 gauge wire, and you want about 3/8 of an inch. So I just like to clean up the end a little bit on the ends of this load harness. Now this is just a resistor. It doesn't matter which end you can do. It doesn't really matter which way. And we're going to go ahead and strip. This is 18 gauge wire. As you can see, I'm just using basic set of strippers, nothing fancy here. And I will point out, because there are certain people who are willing to die on this hill, if you want to solder this in, that's okay. Whatever option you use. Solid crimp, pull test, nice and solid. Come in with the heat gun. So I would like to point out where to terminate your braided loam and your shrink tubing is I don't recommend driving and cramming it all the way up against your connectors. Leave yourself just a little bit of flexibility. The next thing we're going to do, you see that there's some extra length of the braided loam, and you see the labels on the wires. So you don't want to come in here and just put your shrink tubing right on the end and call it a day. What I'm going to do for you, I'm going to wire this actually and simulate the entire wiring outside of the car so you can visually see how it all connects together. And that way when we put it in the car, it's not quite as visual, because when it's in the car, it's behind the dash. So I'm going to actually go through the individual wire, step by step. But one of the things I like to do, and this can be personal preference, so the labels here, it turns out that these are nice and easy to read while you're under the car. But what I like to do is I like to peel this back enough and make sure that you have enough room to run and navigate. And once you know where that is, then come in with the shrink tubing. And once you know that you have enough wires, you don't need to really cut these super short. You can leave enough length so for any kind of future projects, or if you're working on another project and you need to move this around, you don't want these things so tight that they're rigid. Okay, so now we're ready to prepare the wires. If you follow the wiring diagram and the fact that I have a universal kit on the 87 to 89, on the left connector, you will have 3 pins that will not be used because these are going to be used on a 90 to 93. So pins L2, or basically left 2. So pins 2, 4, and 9 will not be used. There's no need to strip the ends. In the kit, I provide 3/32 heat shrink tubing that allows you to just cap the ends of these off. You don't want to have any kind of event with a stray wire contacting any metal. So we're just going to go ahead and place on the shrink tubing. You cut it to fit. Okay, so guys, what I recommend you do, get the wiring diagram, probably maybe even like here, just pull it up on your phone, but it's right on the website. You can find the wiring diagram. And now you're gonna see why we wait till the end to cut the proper length for the braided loam and the final termination. And that's because different wires go to different lengths. So we basically give ourselves enough working room plus to move around, and then once we figure out where everything's gonna go, we'll cut it and do the final piece of shrink tubing. So at this point, what I'm doing, and I'm going to show you this, is I'm going to go through the wiring diagram in order for Donnie's 87. So the first thing we're gonna do is pin 1, or in this case it's the left connector. And if you're not sure, that is a left connector on an 87 to 89 and 90 to 93. The only difference is going to be the wires that you use. So we're going to take L1, and L1 is our left turn signal. Next is going to be pin 7, which is the brake, or L7. So next is going to be our check engine signal, which is L8 or pin 8. And that will go to the engine input. Next is going to be pin 11 or L11 as labeled on my harness, which will go to the tach input. Next will be pin 13 or L13, which will go to our right turn signal. And lastly, on the left connector, and at this point, if you've prepared the wires, it should be obvious, there should only be one connector, L14, or one pin left, L14, and this will go to your high beam. Next, moving on to the right connector on an 87 to 93, which looks just like this. There's only 3 connections, pin 10, or in the case of our harness, labeled R10, will be your fuel sending. So the fuel signal will go to the signal, not the ground. So next is going to be R11 or pin 11, and this will go to your ignition. In this case, just to be precise, the plus, the red plus of ignition power. And lastly
is R14 or pin 14 of the right connector, which will go to the dimmer. And with that, this is all the things that you're going to need to wire. The only thing we'll have left to show you is the speed or VSS wire, which we'll show you inside the car. And then I'm also going to show you how to tap into your fuse box, which is what the other end of the constant power 12 volt power will be. So at this point, this is all the wiring. All of this, as you've just watched me do, is right on a bench top or right at your kitchen table. And I can assure you that when you are inside this car, if you don't have my kit, if you are having to sit there and tap into those wires and splice into them, tracing the colors, oftentimes hard to read, especially because they faded over the years. Is it red? Is it orange? This saves you a couple hours of time and frustration, and it's just more comfortable doing it. So now that we've cut this to the proper length, when we put it in the car, obviously I'm going to have to disconnect these here, showing you what I'm doing. But by laying this out, you don't necessarily need to connect these. I'm doing this for demonstration purposes. But when you are inside the car, you're basically, once you have this, when you know where it's at, you can lay this out on the bench top, figure out where it's at, and terminate these prior to going into the car. The only thing I recommend, just again, because it's easier doing it at the bench top, is strip all the wires and terminate the wire ends that we didn't use for the 90 to 93 in this case. Just go ahead and do all this outside the car. We're going to go ahead and disconnect this now, and I'm going to go ahead and put on the shrink tubing. There is an 8-pin connector that is in your driver's side kick panel, and there's an 8-pin connector that has, what you're looking for is you're looking for a dark green with white. So it's the male and the female side. Now on the 87 to 89, it's the same color on both ends. It changes colors on the 90 to 93. So you're looking for, and if you really weren't certain, you could actually go all the way down to your speed sensor and look at the wires that come out the other end. So it's actually pretty easy to trace it out. But in this case, it is 87 and 89, so we basically can tap into any one of these. If we were needing to tap into this, provided in the kit is a terminal kit that would snap directly onto a wire, and I'm just going to demonstrate this for you. If you want to, and this is properly sized for 18 gauge wire. So some people think they don't like these, but more often than not, the problem is because they use these on the inappropriately sized wire, either too small or too big. But what you would do is you would come in here, clamp this on here, and take a pair of pliers. It's very simple to do. And it'll just snap together. And you're gonna use this connector, and you're gonna create the crimp connection, and then you would slide it onto here, and you would run your wire over to the control box. So just for completeness, I want to show, because this is part of the kit and the wire is also provided, that would go over to your speed signal. Okay, so we're going to need a 12 volt constant source, guys, and in a Fox Body 87 and 93, the best one is going to be what is labeled circuit 16. You can copy what I'm doing, but again, that doesn't guarantee anything. Take a pair of needle nose, pull out the fuse, take a test light or a multimeter, put one side to ground, put the other side, and find 12 volts. Okay guys, as you can see, we put the blade on the right side, and as we made back on the bench, we have the bladed connector. I'm going to go ahead and bend this down because we are going to be replacing the fuse panel cover. We're just going to replace it now. That's it.
All right, Darren, we got it all done into the waning hours of the night, but we did get the installation complete. As you guys saw, the dash looks great in the car. I'm super happy with it, and of course having Darren's product just made the installation so much better, so much smoother. I can only imagine if you didn't have the product, how much more intense the wiring job would have been, especially trying to do it inside the car. I think you displayed beautifully exactly why you would want this product in your car. And your product just made a world of difference.
Yeah, having done a bunch of these, Donnie, I found that, pretty much it went smooth. The dash worked great. I haven't done, this is for me great. It's my first RTX install. There are features on here that are quite amazing, the little warning lights and things that are in here. Guys, if you haven't done a digital dash install, you really should consider one. It really does, the performance of the dash and the things that it can show to you, as well as just a neat look when the needles all switch over and the multiple color options. It is a really neat upgrade, and I would strongly consider it.
I'd like to thank Darren, of course, for joining us out here today. He made the trip all the way from out east to join us here in our little town of Clinton, Illinois. Also, I'd like to thank our technician Matt for sticking around and giving us a hand on a bunch of things. But that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. If you're interested in one of these awesome RTX digital dashes, plus the Newradsolutions adapter kit and easy installation harness, we sell those both as a package deal on Anderson Ford Motorsport. We also sell it as an a la carte option if you just need to, if you already have a dash and you just want to get the easy installation harness. We do stock these, and we're super happy to be doing so. Darren, thanks again so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you in person, and also you have a wonderful product. So that's going to pretty much do it for here. We're going to call it a night. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.